Welcome MLS Listing subscribers. My name is Dave Scalora, and I'm here today with Tom and Michelle. This is a podcast based on the writings of our partner economist, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, specifically his thoughts on the third quarter of 2023. For anyone who has listened to this podcast in the past, Dr. Eisenberg provides a comprehensive look at the prior quarter with national as well as local economic and real estate data specifically for MLS Listings. We encourage you to review the entire document, full of interesting points, by going to the new Pro Content page, an exclusive area for MLS Listing subscribers which can be accessed from the Pro Support site. I will be reading excerpts from the latest summary provided by Dr. Eisenberg, and then my colleagues Michelle and Tom will be discussing his points. The idea is that we take some of these economic issues and turn them into conversational points that you can discuss with your clients. Again, please visit the Pro Support site on the Pro homepage to see Dr. Eisenberg's document in its entirety. Dr. Eisenberg will be joining us for an MLS Listings live event on Thursday, November 16th at 1 p.m. You can reserve your spot ahead of time by visiting the Pro Support calendar. Dr. Eisenberg is a nationally recognized economist, so we will be asking him about recent economic changes, how the 2023 real estate market has fared so far, and importantly, what he expects for the last part of 2023. If you would like to ask questions in advance, send questions to hello@aculus.com. Also, if you're not able to join us, we will have this session on YouTube for a few weeks after the event. So let's begin with our first topic, as Dr. Eisenberg highlights some of the third quarter numbers and challenges. Somewhat surprisingly, the third quarter of 2023 is likely to be a decent quarter for the U.S. economy. While most market watchers and economists thought that we would have drifted into the long-awaited recession by now, most of the third quarter data is fairly strong. In the most recent jobs numbers, September payrolls rose by a surprisingly strong 336,000, and July and August numbers were revised up 119,000. Moreover, job growth was widespread. The labor force participation rate is rising, and wage growth slowed to 4.2% year over year, and to an annualized rate of 3.4% over the last 3 months, a rate nearly commensurate with 2% inflation. Largely because of substantial fiscal stimulus, which has yet to fully dissipate, the current expansion has not yet turned recessionary. However, by year-end, excess savings will probably have been depleted, and starting on October 1st, 2023, student loan repayments will recommence. We are already starting to see the early indicators of slowing consumer spending and falling real income, as August auto sales slumped 4.6% month over month and consumer credit card balances are increasing. There are other significant headwinds that will pose a risk to the hope for smooth landing. In addition to the resumption of student loan payments in October, the possibility of a U.S. government shutdown remains high, especially with the chaos in Congress. The ongoing Russian attack on Ukraine and now the devastating prospects of an extended conflict in the Middle East will have continuing economic impacts on the world economy and raise the potential of spikes in fuel prices. Ongoing labor strikes offer the real possibility of impacting GDP in the short term and generating additional wage inflation. Still, all things considered, the prospects for the fourth quarter of 2023 are good, with the probability of a recession shifting to the first half of 2024.
So, Tom, in this Q3 look back, which I find it hard to believe it's already a look back at Q3, but we have Elliot doing a high-level overview of the national market, which I know people will say, hey, we're in MLS Listings territory, we're here in the Bay Area, but it has an effect in the global economy, influences how people spend money and therefore purchases homes. So, Elliot highlights what's been something that we've talked about a lot, but is a possible, or I've even seen looming recession. And in the last podcast, we talked about it because he noted that people are still, revenge travel was the big one. And we had some fun with that comment on his part. But
I did some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was fun, to say revenge travel. But the point was, and it's a point again here in this document, that we haven't run out of money yet. Right? So the accumulation of money that we have from the pandemic, those who kept their jobs and who were able to work, which was not everybody, but a good portion, I think, of the folks, particularly in the Silicon Valley and surrounding areas, was basically taking money on, couldn't travel, couldn't spend as much. And so what Elliot's saying in this document is essentially that hasn't run out. And so we're still out buying a lot of goods and services. particularly services when we've talked to him before. He's talked a lot more about services than goods in this particular case. But, you know, the question is, if the money stops flowing and he notes consumer spending is already falling, then that raises some questions as we go into Q4, which is a low volume time for MLS listings, areas. So I thought that was an important point of the first, probably even whole page, Tom. I thought that really jumped out to me and was something to discuss.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're already seeing slowing consumer spending and falling real income, seeing credit card balances increasing, I mean, that could be an issue, particularly in the Bay Area, where we know that on a monthly budget basis, that home payment, that rental payment is a significant portion of the overall household spending. I mean, whether you're renting or buying. So it's a big question for real estate heading into this last quarter of 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because a lot of times our comments are geared towards the purchase of a home, right? But in this particular case, the content that Dr. Eisenberg, made at this top part affects all of us because it talks a lot about what we're spending on and what we're not spending on. And I thought that was really interesting because it got the attention even as we came in to record this podcast, our colleagues mentioning, hey, he mentions cars and auto purchases, and has that subsided or have we seen that come down? And we were talking about how, again, keeping this at a national level, the purchase of a car in some places can be very expensive relative to the purchase of a home. So if we're conditioned to these higher prices in the Bay Area, where a car purchase isn't going to come close to what we're spending either in rent or on a mortgage. But in some parts of the country, a lot of parts of the country, that's not the case. The car purchase, as they've been rising over time, has become a big portion of what we spend. So, two things. One, it's interesting because even in the better times, quote unquote, if everyone could see me using air quotes, we always, Bay Area people, buyers, always spent more money on their mortgage than most, right? Even in the better economic times. And so now, with the possibility of going into a recession, you think, wow, that's going to be a significant portion of your income, which is definitely going to be tough for people coming in the market, for sure. The second is that, as we were talking to our colleagues, mentioning the real trouble is in the financing, right? So if you're financing the home, which because of the price tag on most of the homes in the Bay Area, that's going to happen. And so that's where the interest rate really affects you. So if you're unwilling to finance a car, and we're seeing that in the data, Dr. Elliot's saying, then that's going to be potentially challenging for the home market.
Yeah, no, I think so. It was also interesting that, Dr. Eisenberg was saying that the global economy is at risk, and, particularly fuel, which we all know has a huge trickle-down effect on spending. And, I wonder how much of this effect will be. There's this whole push to go to EV and lower the fuel costs. But, as fuel costs stay high, I mean, I think California is among the highest in the nation. That's a big deal. And then there's this whole shift in focus to global security. And consumer sentiment is already a little bit shaky. So, is this convincing, both buyers and sellers to stay out of the market for a while? Question.
It is. I think, we always talk about uncertainty. People, markets, the phrase is that markets don't like uncertainty, but neither do people, right? So when I saw this Q3 write-up, and there's a couple sentences that Dave just read about ongoing or extended conflict, I thought, oh man, a month from now, we'll probably know a lot more. Certainly 60, 90 days from now, we'll know a lot more. But what that could impact, or how that could impact consumer confidence, is a huge deal. I know we were also just talking about this. Car puts out some really great content on consumer sentiment, and it's really interesting that it doesn't necessarily correlate with some of the facts. In other words, mortgage rates have historically been pretty high. We've actually had low interest rates for periods of time recently, so it's kind of short-termism. But in general, they've actually usually been about 7% or higher, or, for realtors, especially our seasoned veterans out there, like, we've been through this before. And you think it doesn't matter so much as long as consumer sentiment is high. And if it's not, then that's when it's a problem, right? So if you're unwilling to move, that's kind of the issue. And so we'll really have to see what happens. Elliot will be joining us again very soon. We could talk to him about these questions, because I thought this beginning part certainly left a lot of questions in my mind. And I think we're going to have to wait and see, but it would be worth asking him, particularly as he comes next month, in November, I should say, to talk about it.
Yeah.
Be sure to check out our latest episodes from our Vendor Spotlight series, as Realtor.com's Angie Javier guides you through a simplified and easy-to-understand overview of artificial intelligence technologies and their practical applications in the real estate sector. In addition, RPR's Andrea Goodart and Ernie Bottom detail the latest updates with RPR, including shareable market trend charts, AI-powered scriptwriter, and free Canva templates, all tools that create visual content in a fraction of the time and with little effort. To check out our entire catalog of Vendor Spotlights, just go to our Vendor Spotlight playlist located on our YouTube page, and be sure to subscribe.
Okay, moving on to our second topic. Can't discuss the housing market without highlighting interest rates. In this passage, Dr. Eisenberg highlights how interest rates have recently affected home prices and availability. The national housing market continues to be dominated by high mortgage interest rates, the highest since 2002, and the impacts to both supply in terms of the iron grip of mortgage rate lock-in, as evidenced by the lack of new listings, and on demand by pushing the monthly home mortgage payment out of the reach of many potential buyers and showing itself in very low closed sales. Existing housing sales slipped to their lowest level since January 2023 in August, and August pending home sales fell 7.1%. High interest rates have pushed up the average interest and principal payment for new borrowers using a 30-year mortgage to $2,306. 2 years ago, only 5% of new borrowers had a payment over $3,000 a month. Today, it's almost 25%. Moreover, high rates have depressed the dollar volume of cash-out refi activity by about half from Q1 2022, when it was almost 1% of available equity per quarter to 0.4%, a decline of $40 billion for the quarter. Home prices have stayed at or near record levels in most areas for one key reason: the relative lack of available inventory. Inventory ticked down slightly from 1.11 million units in July to 1.10 million units in August, the lowest August level ever and well below the 1.28 million units on the market a year earlier. After record housing inventory lows during calendar years 2020, 21, and 22, calendar year 2023 started off weakly. In January through April 2023, for sale inventories were slightly above the record lows set in 2022. However, from May through August, inventory set all-time lows and by wide margins, and it's likely that monthly low records will keep being set for the rest of 2023. Home builders recognize the gap and are trying to fill the available inventory void, and because of this increased new home building activity, the percentage of homes for sale that are new is around 30%, double the historic average.
So this portion of the write-up, Dr. Eisenberg's write-up that Dave just read, there are two main points. Well, two that stood out to me anyway. And the first one is about interest rates. And the second, I think, important point was about the inventory, or as he puts it, or as he was describing, a lack of available homes. So I knew it'd be hard to have a podcast right now without talking about interest rates, because it's such a big part of purchasing a home, we were just talking about financing, they go hand in hand. But when we talked to Elliot in August, and as part of his second quarter write-up, he was talking about the Fed raising the rates one time, maybe skipping one other time, and now maybe considering it one last time. And he so far has been right 2 out of the 3 in his predictions. And so there's a real wait and see to that last one. I mean, depending on how things go, we could see the interest rates rise again. I think that's encouraged people to kind of be in the market, if you were going to be in the market, to get moving, for sure. But Elliot was noting that it's just moved people completely out of the market, right? And so at every raise, there's a subset of buyers that just can no longer purchase. Now, it's had an effect. We've seen it directly. I wonder if it's been part of the reason we've seen some volatility, but some high prices in that common interest market, Tom, because we sure have over the last 60, 90 days. But, there's a real monthly reality to these interest rates changes. And you and I were talking about that before we came on to record. So hopefully you'll be able to share some of those numbers.
Yes. Yeah, you bet. Yeah. So, when I saw that and started thinking about those in the market for a single family home, what the higher interest rates might do, I went to the mortgage calculator and I started looking at specific numbers on $1 million loan. So that's pretty common, I think, in this area. It's not out of the question. And so I was also reading that just this week, rates are passing the 8% mark. That's 0 points, right? You can always buy the rate down, but 8% on a 30-year fixed loan for $1 million. So at 7%, the loan payment pencils out, and these are rough figures, but $6,650 for a monthly loan payment on $1 million at 7%. When you get to 8%, that monthly loan payment increases by $785, and it goes up to $7,340. So $7,340 at 8%. And you and I were talking and mentioning, gosh, it was just really a year and a half ago that some people were still able to lock in loans at 3%, and on a theoretical $1 million 3-year fixed loan, that payment was $4,200. So, I mean, you really see that the interest rates, you think, oh, it's 1% or something. Maybe it's not that bad. It's huge, and for a lot of people, coming up with an extra $800 a month might be really, really difficult. And so, maybe we're seeing people that were looking for a single family home having to go for a common interest home. So there's lots of interesting things that we're seeing.
Or leave the market entirely, right? Which is what Dr. Eisenberg was saying. Yeah, it struck our colleagues that 2 years ago, he says only 5% of new borrowers had a payment over $3,000 a month, and now that's 25%. And so that is, wow, what a powerful stat there. The other thing is that if you look at your money as just a pie, I'm getting real into the economics. Remember that in school, the pie, right? Everything's a pie. But if you look at the pie of all that you bring in, your household income, if you're paying 25% of your household income to a mortgage or to rent, that means that you have less to spend somewhere else. So you maybe eat out less, or maybe you don't vacation, or you vacation less frequently. But the point is that is how you get into some of those recessionary times, is when a whole lot of people stop spending. Then you're going to have some issues. And it would be hard to see that wouldn't happen in the Bay Area, particularly because with the higher home prices, we always have spent more money on our mortgages. We've talked about this. But we're also a group of people generally, this is a huge generalization, but high wage earners with less down, right? So we're going to be more affected by having to finance than maybe some other parts of the country where you save, and have a 20% down payment because of the costs of living here, and because we have workers which maybe didn't grow up here or maybe are new but have high monthly income. That percentage, right, of spending is going to be a significant portion of their income, more than if you put down a down payment and then your mortgage is $800 or $750 versus $1 million. It make a big difference. And so, he's really giving us those data points and helping us understand what's really happening out there. I think the second, though, point in this, and he doesn't mention this, we know this because we are Aculus, we are the data folks within the MLS listings group, but inventory, he notes, is part of the high prices or because of a lack of available homes, and it continues to be an issue, and he says that's what's keeping prices high. Now, the interesting part is that we have seen some volatility in the number of new listings coming on the market, but when you look at our core counties there, we are seeing inventories rise in some places. We are seeing that, as you put it, it's not the worst of the, inventory that we've seen historically. So it's still historically very low compared to prior years, but it's increasing in some places at a time where we wouldn't necessarily seasonally think it would be increasing. And that could change some things as we go into the last part of 2024. So, again, while he wasn't super open in our last meeting with him to talk about an increase in volume or potential increase in prices going into the last part of the year, I would put it on the list as something to ask him and say, hey, what's happening? Why is this happening? Or why do you think this is happening? And what could be the potential outcomes? I'd put that high on the list, Tom.
Absolutely. Yep.
And now for our final topic. Dr. Eisenberg covered a national, regional, and local view in his Q3 summary. He ends his thoughts on a positive note for the MLS Listings community, which could be helpful as we close out the year. The MLS Listings area is one of the areas that has suffered the most from rising interest rates, both in terms of the immediate impacts on the housing market and from interest rate-related impacts on capital markets. The tech sector is powering through by leading the way with the innovation of artificial intelligence. ChatGPT and other AI platforms are increasingly being integrated into the product lines of Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Google, and the rest of the Magnificent Seven, along with thousands of lesser-known offerings, as they actively work to make AI a part of our daily life, business, and entertainment, presenting an enormous growth opportunity for the region. This is likely to offset some of the post-pandemic tech job losses, and the AI opportunities may even serve as an enticement for some employers in the return-to-office sweepstakes. After a tough first half year, the third quarter of 2023 was a bit of a bright spot for the MLS Listings area, especially in terms of prices. Both median and average prices were generally up across the region, and homes sold at or above listing price. Sales remained slow, constrained by both high rates and low inventories, and days on market has remained relatively stable. Still, a recent study by Bank of America shows that San Francisco and San Jose saw the largest outflow of people during the pandemic, and they remain the two cities with the highest rates of outward migration even now. Dr. Eisenberg comments, as more employees slowly return to the office, we are probably witnessing the beginning of the tail end of this painful part of the migratory process.
So I think Elliot closes out his document, Tom, with what I think could be considered really good news for the region, right? Particularly the housing market within the MLS Listings area, because, a couple of things that he says that he thinks the worst is behind us. And I think that could be a volume, right, concern, because, we haven't seen nearly as much volume in any month this year so far than we have in the past, like 4 or 5. And so it's been a low volume, and that's tough when we rely on transactions. But he also talks about employment being a bright spot in the picture, and he talks about AI. He really always thinks that this, AI is going to be a real boom for the region, and so he highlights that in both migration and employment. So good news.
As he mentioned in his summary, employment is a bright spot in the economic picture, and his considerations on a potential recovery to outward migration and uncertainty, I think mean really positive things going forward.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically saying if you're going to leave, you left, and there should be some positive migration back in because of some of these different, where there's jobs and opportunity, and that's always been true for the Bay Area there. So, a couple of things just in terms of that last portion of his document. In terms of market competition or the competitiveness of the market, we are out talking all the time at different brokerages and associations about the fact that, prices remain pretty high. And so while we haven't seen as many transactions, those sellers who have come on the market have been enjoying either prices that are increasing or certainly not decreasing by a whole lot. We've seen some volatility in some markets, particularly common interest, that's condos and townhomes, but there's a lot of value in properties in the valley and surrounding areas, and we know that from the data. And so it's just something to point out with that low inventory that prices are really holding.
Yeah. I mean, we concur, based on our look into the data, that price reductions are significantly lower in many of the cities and counties as compared to last month, whether you look year over year or year to date. So we are seeing a different market than even 6 months ago.
It's true. I think that's a big one because not everybody loves the sale to list price. So I'll tell you, Tom, as I'm out talking to people are like, boo on the sale to list. And I'm saying, well, it's pretty accurate reflection based on the data. There aren't a ton of price decreases, meaning, you're seeing some market equilibrium or buyers and sellers agreeing somewhat on price. And so that's a difference, right? We're looking for market changes. We're looking to highlight what's unique to the area. Excuse me. And while Dr. Eisenberg's write-up really does that, he's noticing that there's positives going into the end of the year. And the limited inventory is going to be a real question as we move forward. But what I do know, Tom, is that, there's a lot of confusion about the market. You hear bad market and you think lower prices, and that's not what's happening. And so, educating your buyers and sellers right now is particularly helpful. And I think the data really speaks for itself. So I'd encourage everybody listening, if you like this write-up, there's a report based off of this exact write-up from Dr. Eisenberg. It's called the Newsletter Report. It's brand new and available with the Q3 look back, a really nice header and your contact information and photo, as with all Aculist reports. So I would encourage our listeners to go out and say, find a template that works for your clients and talk about new listings and the difference between new listings and inventory and year over year price and how the market has changed pretty substantially even in the last 6 months. And to go out and educate buyers and sellers too, because we have a lot of information that's readily available and easy to download. And I think it's a good time for it, particularly if you're planning 2024. Well, on that note, Tom, I think we've gone through the document. I encourage everybody to go read it in its entirety. I know Dave pointed out where that is, but we'll have Dr. Eisenberg again next month. But until then, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, really looking forward to our conversation with Dr. Eisenberg and then chatting with you next year.
With Q3 data currently available, now is the ideal time to download our quarterly market reports and share them with your clients and prospects. Our price segmentation report contains key performance indicators and is a perfect fit for clients who are interested in learning more about the availability of homes at certain price points and where there is the most competition for these homes. The newsletter report provides an overview of the housing market as explained by our partner economist, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg. Containing information on the overall economy and regional insights, this report is great for clients who are interested in a broader look at the overall real estate market in the Bay Area and beyond. To obtain these Aculist quarterly market reports, simply click Aculist Market Report on the Pro homepage and search by your desired county.
Thank you, Tom and Michelle, and I want to thank everyone for tuning into this podcast as we review the economic principles affecting local real estate with the help of our partner economist, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg. We hope that this podcast provided you with talking points to share with your clients. And again, you can find the document in its entirety within the Pro Content page, which is an exclusive area for MLS Listing subscribers to review important content. If you find this podcast helpful, please let us know. We welcome your feedback. Email hello@acculist.com with suggestions. And for those of you interested in asking Dr. Eisenberg questions, he is going to be part of an MLS Listings live event on Thursday, November 16th at 1 p.m. Keep your eyes on the Pro homepage for registration information as we get closer to that date. If you missed the event, the recording will be available on YouTube. This podcast is not done yet. Please stay tuned for summary points made by Dr. Eisenberg regarding the Bay Area real estate market.
Year-over-year, single-family median prices across the region generally rose during 2023 Q3. Santa Clara County saw the highest percentage of year-over-year growth, with prices rising 9.6% to $1,809,000. Prices in Monterey County rose 5.9% to $900,000, and prices in San Mateo County gained 2.5% to $1,825,000. Single-family home prices in Santa Cruz County stayed flat at $1,250,000, while in San Benito County there was a decline in value, with home prices falling 1.4% to $786,986. In the common interest market, year-over-year median prices were up across the region, with the largest percentage gain in Monterey County, where prices rose 21% to $822,500. Townhome and condo prices in San Benito County rose 13% to $599,000. Prices in San Mateo County rose 5.5% to $949,500, and in Santa Clara County, they rose 4.9% to $965,000. The smallest gain in multifamily medium home prices was in Santa Cruz County, where prices rose a nominal 0.2% to $803,750. The listings of single-family homes generally declined across the region compared to last year, although they rose 2.1% in Santa Cruz County. The largest percentage year-over-year decline was in Monterey County, where they declined by 17.4%, followed closely by Santa Clara County, where they declined by 16.2%. New listings of single-family homes in San Benito County declined by 7.3%, while in San Mateo County, they declined by 6.3%. Year-over-year, closed sales declined again this quarter by about 15%, and overall sales volume was down about 10% from last year. In terms of overall sales dollar volume, Santa Cruz County saw the largest percentage decline of 14.9%, while San Benito County was the only area where year-over-year volume increased by 2.5%. In terms of months available inventory for single-family homes, San Benito County has 3 months of inventory, while Santa Cruz County has 2.5 months, Monterey County has 2.4 months, San Mateo County has 1.8 months, and Santa Clara County has only 1.1 months of available inventory.